When you are going through a medical crisis or you're a primary caregiver for a loved one who's going through a medical crisis, time will seem to slow down. Days will feel like weeks, weeks will feel like months, and months will feel like eternity. And that's especially the case when something acute is going on. So in the moments I included for August 20th and 21st in my book, Losing Linda May, a Cancer Caregiving Memoir, my mom has fallen into a depressive coma following a second emergency craniotomy and her really grappling with the fact that she has such a long road to recovery ahead of her. Accurately reflecting the passage of time and the ebbs and flows while I was a primary caregiver for my mom was something I really focused on when I was writing and then editing my book. Because it isn't written like a traditional memoir. I wasn't reflecting on the experience in totality. I was reliving the experience from a day-to-day chronological perspective. So I had a really unique opportunity to play with flow and pacing. The way I approached it was that I would look at an individual day and I would think about everything that was happening in that moment and whether or not time felt to me like it was stretched or if it was moving quickly. So if I wanted to convey that time was feeling a lot slower because something acute was happening, I would include a lot more moments for that day. So then it would stretch it out. However, in the times when less consequential things were going on, it was okay to only include one moment per day, or I could even skip over days if I wanted to just jump forward and keep the narrative moving, because in those moments, it didn't feel like time was slowed down. It just felt like things were proceeding normally or as normally as possible. For the majority of the book, I felt like that was really effective. However, for this specific time period where my mom was in this depressive coma, I still feel like when I read the book, that I did not fully capture how intense this time period was for us and how long it felt for my dad and I specifically, because we were spending every waking moment thinking about what was going on, talking about what was going on, looking at my mom in this depressive coma and just wondering if this was the end and she had chosen to give up officially and that was going to be it, that we would have to make the decision to pull the plug on her because she didn't want to eat on her own. She already had the nasogastric intubation. And we just didn't want it to have to come to that point. Obviously, we didn't want her life to end. I'm so curious if readers will feel that or if they will think that my dad and I are blowing things out of proportion. So let me know in the comments if you've read the book and what you felt like in this moment. Did we blow things out of proportion in your mind, or did it actually capture how intense this period of time was for us and how long it felt to us? This is what happened when my mom eventually woke back up. Dad swoops in to kiss his wife. He weeps. "Why are you crying?" "Because it's so good to hear your voice," Dad says, squeaking. My composure crumbles. The combination of relief and elation produces an outpouring of happy tears. "Hey, Mom," I say, beaming. "Welcome back. We missed you." "I'm not sure I went anywhere," she says, looking around the room. I cannot tell if she's making a joke or if she's genuinely unaware of the past few days. She identifies Amy on the couch. "When did you get here?" The question provides clarity. "Just last night," Amy says, joining us beside the bed. She embraces Mom. "What day is it?" "Friday." "Oh, you didn't have to take off work for me." The expression of selflessness is the biggest indicator thus far that Mom is actually present. "You're more important than a bunch of cargo trucks," Amy says, smiling. "I'm so happy you're feeling better." "Did I go back to the Twilight Zone?" "Yep." "For how long?" "A few days." "Oh, that's not too bad," Mom says casually. Dad and I make eye contact. It is best if she's unaware of the stress her most recent blackout caused us. This scene really reflects the polarities of the time passage spectrum. So on the one hand, you have my mom, who, because of her depressive coma, time is flying by at hyperspeed because she is not aware of anything. And then the other side, you have my dad and I and my sister-in-law, Amy, who are watching this unfold and so terrified about what is to come if she doesn't wake up. So time is passing by so slowly to us. And then everyone else in our lives are operating at their own unique pace depending on what's occurring in their day-to-day. And a lot of them are just plodding forward like normal. Time is passing quickly because they're just clocking in and out of work. They're making dinner, they're going to bed, they're restarting the day. It doesn't feel consequential at all to them. So it's going at a fast rate. And beyond the friction that comes from two people living very different realities and at different paces of life, trying to communicate with each other, which presents itself a lot when you are a primary caregiver for a loved one who's going through a medical crisis or when you're going through a medical crisis yourself, There's also this notion that severity can seemingly get lessened when you are looking at it from an outsider perspective when life is normal to you. For example, if I texted my friend at this time that my mom had fallen into a depressive coma on a Wednesday, and he is just going about his day-to-day life, nothing of consequence is happening, and then I text them again on a Friday and say, hey, my mom woke back up, to him, it would feel like a blip, like nothing significant had occurred. Whereas for me, it felt like eternity and that I didn't know if my mom would ever wake back up. So we have this disconnect where he cannot relate to what I'm actually experiencing. This is the exact same situation as I talked about earlier about readers of the book maybe coming to different conclusions based on the actions of my dad and I, because I couldn't really capture how long that time actually felt in all the conversations that we really had. It would have consumed the entirety of the book. If you're ever that friend or you're a loved one of someone who's going through a medical crisis, just be mindful that the pace in which their life is unfolding is very different than your own. And also just give them a lot of grace and realize when you're communicating with them, whatever they are telling you is way more severe in reality than they could ever possibly capture. I'll be releasing another video on August 22nd, and I'll be talking about how change is the only thing that is guaranteed in life, other than death, I guess. Hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to my book is in the description, and I will see you all then.